What if the biggest thing holding you back isn't a lack of confidence, motivation, or knowledge? What if it's simply that you've mistaken who you are? In The Matrix, Morpheus tells Neo, you have to let it all go, Neo. Fear, doubt, and disbelief. Free your mind. Most people hear that line and think the lesson is about believing in yourself. I don't think that's true. Completely. I think it's about letting go of everything that prevents you from seeing who you already are. And if you've ever felt stuck, if you've ever known what to do but couldn't bring yourself to do it, felt like there's a greater version of you trying to emerge but something keeps holding you back, then Neo's journey might actually be your journey too. At the start of the film, Neo is asleep. Not physically asleep, existentially asleep. He thinks he's Thomas Anderson, a man trapped in a job, living a life that doesn't quite fit, feeling there's something more but unable to see it. And if we're honest, most of us live there. Not because we're lazy or because we're incapable, but because we've become identified with a story. A story that says, I'm not good enough. I'm too old. I need more qualifications, more certainty. I can't make money doing what I love. Whatever it might be, these aren't facts. They're identities. And identities can become prisons. In the Tantric tradition, the prison has a name, mala, a veil, contraction of consciousness, a forgetting of one's true nature. According to the teachings of non-dual Shaiva Tantra, the deepest illusion isn't that we're weak, it's that we've forgotten what we are. The teachings say that consciousness voluntarily contracts itself into a limited identity, then spends lifetimes trying to remember. Neo hasn't forgotten, and so have we. This is where people like Tony Robbins' work come interesting. Tony says things like the strongest force in the human personality is the need to remain consistent with the identity we hold ourselves to. And think about that. Not the goals that you hold, the identity you hold. Because you'll always act in alignment with who you believe yourself to be. A smoker who says, I'll try to quit smoking, is still foundationally identifying as a smoker. And the person who says, I'm not confident, will unconsciously find evidence to support that identity. A person who says, I'm not the kind of person who succeeds, or I can't earn that amount of money, will sabotage themselves every time success comes their way. Not because they want to fail, but because the identity feels more familiar, feels safer than freedom. Joe Dispenza talks about this as well. He teaches that every thought creates chemistry. Every repeated emotion reinforces a neutral pathway. And eventually we become addicted to being ourselves. Think about that. Addicted to being ourselves. Not our true selves, but our conditioned selves, the small s self, the version that we've spent years, decades, a lifetime building out of repetition. Years of fear, disappointment, rehearsing the same story over and over again. The body becomes the subconscious mind, and suddenly you're not choosing your future. You're just reliving your past. Again and again. And again, just like a program running inside the matrix. This is why insight alone rarely changes anything. You can know your beliefs are irrational, you can know you're capable, know what you should do, and still not do it. It's like the smoker or the drinker who knows that they want to quit, knows that they can, but they just don't. It's because the prison isn't intellectual, it's embodied. You don't think your identity, you live it. And what's fascinating is that Neo doesn't become free through understanding. He becomes free through experience. Morpheus never lectures him into awakening. He trains him, challenges him, pushes him, shows him that there's more. He's capable of more. And he doesn't have to be bound by the conclusions that he's made and the limitations that he's believing himself to be constrained by, because reality changes people more effectively than information ever will. The jump program, the sparring program, the rooftop, every challenge was designed to expose a limitation, not because the limitation is real, but because Neo believed it to be real. And this is exactly how growth works. You don't overcome fear by thinking about courage. You become courageous by doing the thing fear told you you couldn't do. You build confidence and then act. You act and confidence emerges afterward. You don't become free and then take the leap. You take the leap and discover the cage was never locked. But here's the part of the movie I missed for a long time. The turning point isn't when Neo starts dodging bullets. It's when he chooses to rescue Morpheus. Because at that moment, he still doesn't believe that he's the one. He's scared, uncertain, and completely outmatched. And yet he acts. Because something more important than fear emerged for him. Conviction. He says, I believe I can bring him back. Most people wait for certainty before acting, but certainty rarely comes first. Conviction does. And conviction sounds like this: I don't know what's going to happen, but I know what I need to do. This is the moment Neo begins to believe. Not because fear disappears, but because fear is no longer in charge. Then comes the final lesson, the one every spiritual tradition points toward. Neo dies. Literally. Agent Smith shoots him, and symbolically it's the death of Thomas Anderson, the death of that identity, of the self-image, of that story. Because transformation always requires a death. Not necessarily a physical death, an identity death, a death of the victim, the people pleaser, the perfectionist, procrastinator, the perpetual seeker, the version of you that keeps insisting you are smaller than you truly are. In Tantra, this is sometimes described as recognition, pratyabhijna, not becoming something new, remembering what was always true, recognition of one's true nature, pratyabhijna, not achievement, but recognition, not becoming divine, but remembering that you always were. And that's why the most powerful moment in the entire film isn't when Neo flies, it's when he sees the code. Because for the first time, he sees reality differently. Nothing outside of him changes. Only perception changes. And because of that, everything changed. So if you're wondering how to break free from your own matrix, start here. Ask yourself, what identity am I protecting? What story keeps repeating? What would I do if fear wasn't making the decision? Because maybe your freedom isn't on the other side of more information. Maybe it's on the other side of letting something die. A story, a limitation, a belief, an identity. Morpheus was right. You have to let it all go. Fear, doubt, and disbelief to free your mind. Not because belief gives you power, but because when the illusions fall away, what's left is who you've been all along. And perhaps that's the real message of the Matrix. The One was never someone Neo had to become. The one was who he was underneath everything he believed himself to be. And maybe so are you. If this resonates with you, let me know in the comments. What identity are you ready to let die so that something truer can emerge? And if you'd like more videos exploring the intersection of Tantra, psychology, consciousness, personal transformation, subscribe and join me for the next one. Until then, thanks for joining. Free your mind and see you in the next transmission. Cheers.